and basically whatever the hell I want. Hello everybody, and welcome to Gene's Reviews from a regular dude here in my car. Today we're going to check one out from Most Amazing Top 10. This is morgue workers share their scariest things they've seen. That's a job I wouldn't want, is working in the morgue. Just too depressing for me. Let's check this out though.
Working in a morgue means dealing with the dead. But what happens when the dead don't stay quiet? A heavy door flings open on its own at 3 a.m. A voice calls out from the depths of an empty basement, and a dead person's phone alarm refuses to die, going off at the same time every day. These are some of the creepiest stories from morgue workers. Now, I'm going to call this first story The Door Flung Open. It comes from Reddit user Ghost with the Most and goes as follows. Back in the day, I used to work for a funeral home, and oftentimes when an elderly client had pre-arrangements and they passed away, I would be dispatched to collect their earthly remains and bring them back to the funeral home to be prepared for their celebration of life / going away party. Now, sometimes this would be a collection directly from the morgue, or from their residence. More often than not, this was typically in the middle of the night. Well, one night I was dispatched to collect an elderly gentleman who crossed the Rainbow Bridge and was deemed to be picked up around 1 a.m. By the time I got ready into the residence, it was around 2 a.m. and back to the funeral home around 3. Once I helped Mr. Doe get comfortable in our cooler, I was ready to leave. As I was just getting ready to set the alarm and head back home, the prep room door behind me flung open and then slammed very abruptly. This door is very big, very heavy, and takes some power to open and close. Needless to say, I was early for my normal shift in the morning because, well, I didn't go back to sleep. The creepiest thing about this is that just before that happened, the hair rose on the back of my neck. This next story comes from Reddit user Crucifix1233.
Could be
I had
just
to go
a
to the
story,
funeral
but
home late one
creepy.
night to get some things ready for my manager to pick up a body. It was a friend of hers, and she just wanted to show up and go. My wife came with me for the drive, and I was in the basement while my wife was waiting upstairs. The basement has two parts to it. One is newer, and the older section, which we called the catacombs, is where we kept caskets, supplies, etc. I was just getting the spare stretcher ready, making sure there's gloves and other supplies with it, when I heard my name called, but it came from the catacombs. It was a deeper voice, too, that made my hair stand on end. I'd also just been in the catacombs, which made it even
hearing your name called.
It wasn't my wife, and there was no one else there
creepy.
as we left before my manager came in. No idea what it was, but it definitely freaked me out. Alright, this next one is so simple, but it gave me the shivers. This one comes from user nursejoy_IRL. I'm an ER nurse. One time we had someone die and no one came to claim the body, so they went to the morgue and that was it. But their phone stayed behind in the ER by accident. Every day at 2:30 p.m. an alarm would go off. We couldn't turn the alarm off or shut down the phone without a passcode. And the battery on that thing was lasting forever. So we locked it in the med room, but it was still really loud. We had to listen to that dead person's alarm haunt us at the same time every day for a week. To this day, I shudder when I hear that same ringtone. I don't know what it is about that one. That just gets me. Unsettling.
No, not me.
Nacho Squid
it's just
comes the tale.
He had his alarm set
up
for 2:30 every day.
I worked at a funeral home for quite a while. When I first started about a month in, I was working a holiday weekend. Only people working were the transport guys and me. They came to drop off a body and went right back out. I thought they were still there, and I needed to ask a question. I walked into the embalming area, and this corpse was sitting up on the gurney, looking right at me when I opened the door, and it literally made me pee a little in fright. Turns out the transport guys picked up the body from an area hospital. He passed away while in a slightly reclining position, and rigor mortis had set in. They couldn't flatten him out. Still the scariest moment in my career, even if I got a laugh out of it later. Next up is a tale called The Knocking. This one comes from Redditor J. Dog Henderson. I used to work as a gravedigger and would sometimes work in the crematorium. The crematorium was in the middle of the cemetery surrounded surrounded by trees. I picked up an extra shift at the crematorium that was from 6 to 12. It was about 11:45, and it was business as usual. There was a big freezer in the crematorium where they keep bodies before they're burned. And the door to the freezer is super heavy. The freezer was empty as I was cremating the last body. All of a sudden, I hear loud knocking coming from somewhere within the crematorium. At first, I thought it was some kids outside messing around. So I went outside, and there was nobody there. Go back inside and I hear knocking again. It was coming from the inside of the freezer. I finished up what I was doing.
Someone
got the
not
hell
dead?
out of there. Never been more frightened in my life.
I wouldn't have done that. I would have checked to
to
see if someone was still alive by accident.
I worked for a big funeral care provider in the UK. Everyone in the mortuary I visited as part of my time with them in Scotland had some kind of paranormal experience. The creepiest and most famous one among the staff was that an elderly gentleman had died and been brought in to do an embalming so he could be viewed by his family and prepared for the funeral. He was kept there up until his funeral, so roughly 2 weeks to a month, while everything was put into place. Well, one night, when mostly everyone had gone home, he was caught on camera by the security firm. Apparently they caught this elderly man taking a walk around the place before vanishing, and an alarm that shouldn't have been tripped was tripped. When the staff viewed the footage, to their horror, they realized it was the dead elderly gentleman that had been brought in previously. He was still in the refrigerated unit. To this day, they have no explanation for it. Additionally, the manager told me
His
it wasn't
ghost.
uncommon for
Plain
the
and
alarms
simple.
to be tripped at the funeral homes at night as if someone was walking around them, which once again meant the contracted security firm had to get in touch with someone at the company during the night so they could send someone over and turn it off. They would go over there to turn the alarm off and nobody would be there. Pretty crazy stuff. This next one is incredibly creepy. I'm gonna title this one Face Down. It comes from Reddit user Ms. Pout. I worked at a morgue for about 4 years. One night I was at my desk doing some paperwork that the day crew couldn't get to. I heard some noise and I thought someone got into the room where we keep the bodies. I walked in there and I saw one of the dead bodies by the door laying face down, as if he was walking and had fallen forward. No one was in the building with me at all, and to this day I have no idea what happened. Everything was locked, and the security camera that was in that room had mysteriously cut out for about 30 seconds. You could see the body on the table, then 30 seconds later, it was face down near the door. Gotta say, this next one gave me a bit of existential dread.
I'd lose my
Story
shit.
Comes from Midnight Lycanthrope, who wrote the following. When I was in college, I worked for the Willed Body program. I wanted to be a doctor. Well, one day I walked into the morgue and discovered that the delivery crew left a recently deceased person in the open space. I've seen some gnarly stuff, but this scene regularly plays out in my head. It's nothing grotesque, just an old lady in her nightgown desperately clutching a teddy bear. She looked as though she had seen a ghost. She had this expression on her face like she was gasping in terror. That scene made me jump. I wasn't expecting it. However, seeing this person in their last moments left a huge impression on me. It just makes me wonder how terrifying it must be facing death. And that thought further resonates with me when I think of people taking their own lives. How horrible must one feel to knowingly, willfully run to the dark embrace of death. If anything, as I grow older, that scene reminds me to be better, forgive, and express love and happiness. From Reddit user Henry's My Agent comes the tale of the wheezing. Had a gig doing overnight transport of dead bodies. Think black suit, white shirt, black tie, unmarked black van, and boss made us wear white gloves. He wanted us to look high-end. And needed to transport a recently deceased middle-aged woman, breast cancer, 250 miles in the dead of night from a hospital morgue to a mortuary near her extended family. It's been a solid 2 hours of total silence when the corpse lets out a low wail. Sounds like, I about crap myself as I swerve off the freeway and spray out a rooster tail of gravel and dirt. Even though intellectually I know this is just stomach gases escaping the body, I couldn't help but be a little freaked out. From Chocobo Kisses comes the tale of the thunderstorm. I worked at a morgue when I was a teen. I was paid under the table for cleaning and picking up after people, laundry and whatnot. Well, anyway, San Antonio is on the tail end of the Tornado Alley. One day, a huge thunderstorm rolls in. I'm left there alone in the break room watching VH1. Mind you, there are no windows in the morgue because it's an old warehouse downtown, and also privacy is a thing. Without warning, the power goes out. I'm sitting there in the dark with only a glaring exit sign illuminating the main morgue, shining gently through the doorway of the break room. I let out a tiny eep and slowly got up to look around. I call out and no one is there, of course. I get a glimpse of the main prep room, and it's eerily lit in a red haze and shadows. I scurry out the front door, out of the huge covered storage garage, and wait outside in the rain until someone comes back. Legitimately, one of the most terrifying experiences. Felt like I was in a Resident Evil or Silent Hill video game. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you yet.
Well, that was interesting. It wasn't quite as creepy as I thought it was going to be. But that was morgue workers share the scariest things they've seen. For most amazing top 10. Yeah, he mentioned in there that people being afraid to die or whatever. I've never really been afraid to die. I don't know why, but it doesn't scare me. Because I have faith that I'll be with my family again. But I don't know. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments down below. Now, you know what time it is. If you stayed this long, it's time for a joke. What did Ernie say when Bert asked him if he wanted any ice cream? Sure, Bert.